Hello and welcome to First Geek 411 Book Club. Tonight we are talking Black Panther, A Nation Under Our Feet, Book 1 by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Just have my phone.
Just just have digital.
Um, Before we get into all the good comics, you can find us at all of the social medias. We are One Geek 411 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out our website at 1geek411.com and watch live on our Twitch every Monday night at 6:45 Mountain Time and find all our videos over on YouTube. Rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our Redbubble store. And I'm Shanine. And with me, I have Emma
Hi.
and Cameron.
Hello, hello.
All right. So, in Black Panther, A Nation Under Our Feet, Book 1, Wakanda is on the brink of upheaval, and T'Challa must balance his duties as King and Black Panther to protect his people and earn back their trust. A woman named Zenzi is using her mental powers to unleash people's rage and is allied with Tetu, a man from the far edge of Wakanda who can control nature. A member of the royal guard, the Dora Milaje, is sentenced to death for killing a corrupt leader, but is broken out of prison by her partner, who commandeered the Midnight Angel prototype armor. The pair are taking justice into their own hands. Corruption and rage run rampant in Wakanda. Revolution is imminent. What are y'all's first impressions?
This was quite enjoyable. I don't read enough comics. That's where that comment comes from. I need to read more comics because I appreciated the art, especially. But I would love to keep reading this to see where it goes.
There is more.
There is more. I want to know what happens next. Plus, I really like the Midnight Angels armor.
Did you like that one of them's basically the Avatar?
Yeah, I saw that. I actually have it.
Yeah. I like that it's not even like subtle. It's just like there's a straight up
It's
arrow
there.
on her head.
Straight up there.
like so I really enjoy this. I like this take. One of the things that I think kind of drew me to this is I like that a lot of the action in this isn't actually Black Panther doing stuff. Like we actually get a lot more of the Midnight Angels doing like out and about, and I kind of like how that ties in with the overall themes that are going on.
Yeah.
And then, as Emma said, I like the art a lot. I love their representation of technology in this, and how they like how that ties in with the art style. We'll look at some examples later, but yeah, I like this a lot.
Yeah, I also enjoyed it. It's my first time reading any Black Panther comics, and it was really enjoyable. I think a different take than what
Mm-hmm.
I'm used to out of the MCU, but in a very enjoyable, interesting way.
And I feel
And
like there's definitely a lot here that you can see. Um, I'm trying to think the best way to say it. There's a lot of like groundwork here that you can see they like have shades of in the MCU. Um, and I'm very curious for Black Panther Wakanda Forever if it would have been pretty close to this story had Chadwick not died.
Yeah.
Because their initial script sounds
A
kind
lot
of a
like
lot
this.
like this. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious if this was going to be one of the major inspirations for that other script. I don't know if that's been confirmed anywhere, but sure seems like a coincidence.
I also want to point out the there's also an issue at the end of this with that's the first appearance of Black Panther, and it's so cool to see like
Mhm.
where he was when he was introduced character-wise to where he is now character-wise. Because, like, he's introduced as, like, this guy who's just wants to hunt down the Fantastic Four. But now he's like, oh, I just want to be a good king. Um,
We will get to that later.
yes.
Um,
I just wanted to mention that very briefly. I enjoyed that, to have, like, a then and now.
all right. So, speaking of the MCU, what is everyone's previous familiarity with Black Panther character and stories?
Black Panther specifically, my only like interaction is through the movies. Um, movie. I mean, there's the Black Panther movie, and then he's in stuff after that. So that's like the only interaction that I've had, like, with the character. But would have more. Yes.
So for me, I said this after the last book club. I think that this is the run that was coming out when they announced that they were doing a Black Panther movie initially, and that he was going to be coming in. Like I said, I think that timeline works out to be about right. So this was my first time jumping in, and it was very much the like, oh, I don't know a lot about this character. I'm kind of want to learn more. And so this is what I jumped into. Since then, I have read some other Black Panther comics. There was some runs I think that were on Prime Reading that were free on there, and so I read those. But this kind of has remained of the very limited Black Panther that I've read. I've really enjoyed this. But yeah, this is, and he's probably also in Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which I played. I don't remember him being there. Like I don't remember playing that character, but I probably did.
For me, same as Emma. I just know him from the MCU, but I'm excited to be able to read this and get to know different facets of his character. What was your favorite part?
So mine is like less of a like specific part and more of like a general thing that goes on. I really like the amount of like philosophy that is in this. Like I said, like even I mean, there's definitely like fighting and stuff, but like a lot of what's going on is like philosophical on the stance of how should rulers rule and things like that. What's their role to the people? What's the people's role to the ruler? And I really liked that. Like as like a again as like a not an individual point, kind of summed up by the conversation in the college classroom, but I really like that theme of again of that like philosophy ideas. More specifically, I really like it's the scene. Let me find it. And now I'm gonna not be able to quickly get to what as I wanted to. It's the I like the breakout scenes with the Dora Milaje. I like that. I really like how they're characterized in this idea of the country has failed them, and so they're the ones now going back and trying to protect the people. And so I really like getting to see them kind of there be rebels, but like they're rebels who are actually out trying to protect people rather than just cause chaos.
I liked the kind of going off of that, Cameron, the like the hippie philosophy professor.
Yes, yeah.
Like, he reminded me a lot of someone you would meet in Portland.
Yes. Definitely agree.
Actually, like, very much the kind of character you would come across in Portland. And just like all of the interactions with him, um, between both sides, because there's scenes where he interacts with both the good guys and the bad guys. but he takes a very sort of neutral stance, basically, or at least tries to. And it was just fun to like see that character, like, or just like have a character that's like just doesn't want things to happen, but also doesn't want to get involved necessarily.
Yeah.
Also, there's a part. Sorry, Shanine. One
Oh,
more
go for
in
it.
the later, like in the Fantastic Four issue that's included in this. It's a panel where a guy essentially this comic essentially outdates itself because the guy pulls out something to communicate with someone super far away, and one of the guys is just like, he took out a metal device from inside his toga. It's so small. He's supposed to transmit a message with this? How does that work? Halfway around the globe? What? And it's just like, yeah, it's called a cell
Yeah,
phone.
no one could imagine such a small
No
device
one
capable of
could
doing such
imagine.
things.
And they give this whole like it has to do with like magnetic magical properties that surround the planet, and it's like, no, that's a cell phone. Those exist now. And it just cracked me up because it was just like there's this whole like 3 or 4 panels about this guy communicating with someone very far away with a small metal device, and it's like, yeah, those are a thing.
Yeah, that was good. Um, but yeah, I agree with you guys as well. The philosophy stuff was really interesting and just important to set the tone and the themes of the whole series. Um, and yeah, just a different way of digging into the dilemmas that the characters were going through. I think one of my favorite parts was just anytime we got to talk with Ramonda, like, well, the great mom,
Mhm.
she's the smarty pants, that one. I enjoyed her a lot.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Any least favorite parts?
Do y'all think that Black Panther feels guilty about not being there previously for his people?
Hmm.
Like, again, less of like a specific point, but I feel like and like I get that this is 4 different comics, they kind of got to bring it back up every time, but like it really felt like they were trying to hamper home that Black Panther was
Yeah.
not there for things, and that obviously this is kind of the foundation for a longer run as well. So like they kind of got to hit on that, make sure people understand the gravity of what's going on. But it really felt like especially reading it in this format, basically just like reading straight through all 4 of them.
Yeah. Back to
It,
back.
yeah, it's just very much like, yes, we are aware. He was not here. Shuri is dead. Yes, we got it.
Absolutely.
So again, like less of like an individual point, but more of just like them hammering that same point home over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. Really. Yeah. Also, Shuria, the one thing that confused me, Shuria is different from his sister. Different character?
Same character.
Same character.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Same Shuri. She is.
Because I think
Yeah.
in the movie it's like they changed the pronunciation or like spelling of it or something, but I may be wrong. Um, that may be just me mixing up names.
See, I think it's. Yeah, I think it is spelled the same.
Just Shuri.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen the movie in a while, so
Yeah. You're good.
but definitely his sister. Because I, for whatever reason in my head, like, I couldn't tell if it was his sister or, like, his wife that had then died. So I think that was the other thing that may have just been an interpretation thing.
Yeah, because there is one point like where he talks about like losing the love of his life
Yeah.
relatively quickly. I think after
And
talking about
and
losing
like
Shuri.
she's like the
Yeah.
queen, like
Yeah.
it was clear that she like held the position of queen for a while, so it was like you don't often see a brother sister team set up as like in the like king and queen positions, at least in terms of modern day scenarios. So anyway, I would say that's the one thing that at least confused me, along with him just hammering in constantly that he feels bad for not being there.
I don't think I had any like major gripes about it. If I'm getting really nitpicky, Zenzi wasn't super interesting to me, but that might just be a yet thing, and like in a few more comics they'll show her character a bit more and it'll be more interesting. But yeah, I think just more depth for her character would have made her a bit more interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
But
I have a comment for a later question on that.
okay. What did you think of T'Challa's character, as well as compared to how you've seen him portrayed elsewhere?
One of the things that I like about this version, uh,
Hold on.
compared to the MCU version, is this take on the character definitely feels less confident. Like he's more shaken from the battles that he's been through. Um, he's like, it feels like he's seen more things, and like the weight of those things carries on him heavier. Whereas like MCU T'Challa, like, well, he definitely had his like moments. In general, always felt like he was in control and knew what to do. Whereas this one, especially towards the end, feels like, oh, this is a bad choice, but here we go.
Yeah, he definitely felt very different from
Mm-hmm.
the T'Challa that I've seen in the MCU. I don't know, just a lot more emotional, maybe desperate, but
Mm-hmm.
also like more serious.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, again, maybe if we had gotten to see T'Challa's character in this new one, this would have been what we would have seen him as a bit more after going through all
Mm-hmm.
the things. But
He definitely seemed quite a like distracted almost. Like trying to be a good king, but like very much distracted by his like emotions almost, or like just unable to focus on how to handle the situation of his people being turned against him.
Mm-hmm. Sheen, I think like using the word desperate, I think was definitely a good. There's definitely those things where you see him. It's like, why are you in this fight by yourself?
Yeah.
Like, there's definitely a lot of those moments that are
You volunteered to or
like,
said just go by yourself. You
yeah,
wouldn't let anyone go with you.
yeah, and it's just like he's like more like feels the need to prove himself that he after being gone that he needs to prove that he's the ruler by doing these things on his own instead of relying on like his team. And that's kind of like the first time he gets got by Zinzi. Just like, dude,
Mhm.
you were here by yourself. What did you expect? Like, versus later when he shows up with the war dogs, like it's like, oh, you brought a team this time. It still didn't go great, but like at least you learned.
Yeah. All right. Thoughts on our antagonists, Zenzi and Tetu?
Also, is T'Challa the antagonist? Like,
Unclear.
you know,
Protagonist.
um, but I I really like the power set that Zinzi has. Um, I really wish they explained it a little bit more.
Yeah.
In terms of, I don't know. It's like that hard line of like, I don't want them to be like, "Hi, my name's Zinzi, and my power is this." But like, but I really liked this idea. I mean, of some mystery around it, and this idea that she's not like controlling people's emotions, but she's basically pushing certain
Exposing.
emotions to the top,
Yeah.
like bringing those out of people.
Yeah.
And so I really like that idea of like, again, this nation isn't being potentially overthrown by necessarily malicious people. You know, there's a big thing at the end that's very malicious, but like, but it's about like the normal people's emotions, their doubts, their struggles, and I like that Zinzi as a power set brings that out. I just wish that, to your point from earlier, Shanine, she like had literally anything meaningful to do other than flip a switch power wise. Like I feel like she's kind of like reduced to that throughout the series,
Yeah.
compared to T2, who's kind of the opposite. Like he's power set wise is pretty average druid type character, but he has all of the philosophy, all of that side of it. And so it really feels like they felt the need to have two different antagonists, and they just did not do a great job at splitting up the characterization between the two of them.
Yeah. Um, I like their outfits.
I do like their outfits as well.
Um, I didn't realize that they were the same people. Probably because I read through this pretty quickly. Um, but I absolutely agree. I would like to see more of the druidy stuff because I like druidy stuff. Um, and I do think the like being able to almost not like control emotions, but like expose them. There's a lot that you can explore with that. And I just want to see more of like exploring with that, kind of like what you were talking about, Cameron. Um, because that's like a pretty interesting concept to have, and there just isn't a lot of it. So, 100% want to see more of that. But I do think they're pretty interesting. Like, they feel like those that kind of character set that like genuinely believe they're trying to make the world better, but like going about it in the wrong way. Like good intention, terrible execution. But like maybe there is some sense of like they're going about it in a terrible way, but they haven't fully recognized it yet. So,
So I've already said what I thought of Zenzi. Um, Tetu I found more interesting. Like he's got the relationship with the hippie philosophy
Mm-hmm.
professor, and like we see him meeting with like midnight angels and stuff. Like he's got obviously some kind of interesting backstory. He's making moves. He, I just found him a lot more interesting of an antagonist. And like, yeah, he has his reasoning for what they're doing. Um, Flawed or not, like
Mm-hmm.
he's got his reasons.
Yeah, and I think
So,
it's kind of similar to Killmonger from the MCU. It's like flawed reasoning, but you can see why T2 is doing what he's doing. Like, and I like that in my villains. So,
mhm.
There's some logic behind
mm-hmm.
the. It may be flawed in some ways, but there's something. It's not just willy nilly.
Right. Any other standout side characters or main characters, depending on how you're looking at it?
um, again, I think that the Midnight Angels are definitely really cool. I like their characterization through this and kind of their desire of taking justice into their own hands. Um, I also like this depiction of the armor. I think it's very cool looking. And I kind of like how they're out here, like specifically fighting to rescue the women who are being oppressed and have been struggling. Like for all the glitz and glamour of Wakanda, people are still being mistreated and it's being overlooked. And it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna go fix this. An army of two. Like, I really like that.
Yeah, and going for a specific like group that needs help. Um, like I said earlier, I really like the hippie professor. Um, dude, but I guess this is more of a section that's character involved that I thought was kind of cool, but the whole like with Shuri, the whole like dream like afterlife memory scape was pretty cool and just like still getting to see that character even though she's like passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still a story to explore there. And that's cool to see like this meaningful character for one of like obviously Shuri's a, as we know, as he talks about it frequently, an important person to T'Challa, but she doesn't just magically disappear. At least for the audience, you still get something to like interact with.
I also enjoyed the Midnight Angels. I have a few questions about how much fishnets needed to be involved in the armor, but
That is a
other
good
than
call
that,
out. Yeah, very fair criticism.
Yeah, absolutely.
other than that, I like the color. It's a good color. Um, and I like that they both feel like very different characters as well. Like they could have just both been like, I don't know, tough warrior women, but they felt like they had their own personal motivations as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One was a bit more burn it all down, and the other one was like, well, now that we've burned it down, how do we fix
Yep.
it? And yeah, it was a very small, I think just like one panel. of that conversation, but it held a lot of weight. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
right. What did you think of the world of Wakanda, and compared to Wakanda that we've seen in other media as well?
One of the things that I really like about this take is the plane of memory, or the astral plane as they call it in the movies. But I really like that in this, it's not reserved for people that have taken the heart shaped herb. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
this thing that exists. And so like we see this like towards the end with Shuri and not her mom, but her mom. Um, and this idea of like presumably all these former queens of Wakanda that have existed, and are still living on the like in the plane of memory. Like it's not just a bunch of guys hanging out in a tree. Like, so I really like that representation. Um, I have a, and I feel like this is a bigger question, but it's like the idea of like I have a lot of questions about the scale of Wakanda. Like, I feel like this comic made it seem like Wakanda is like the whole continent.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like geography, it's like here are these things we haven't been able to confirm anything because they're so far away. It's like they are like
Are they really?
like in the most technologically advanced society in the world, you can't get there in 20 seconds and find this information. Um, but yeah, so like that was kind of my biggest thing. And then I do feel like in some cases, Wakanda here feels less like an identity of like the location as a whole and more just like this is a big city. You can definitely like it definitely gives me a lot of appreciation for the MCU's take with all the world building that they're able to pull in when they can use things like music and stuff like that as a way of setting the tone
Mm-hmm.
for what Wakanda sounds like to be there and things like that.
Yeah. I also I like how it kind of depicts Wakanda in a sense of like they didn't necessarily get to where they are in terms of being the most advanced. Like that whole path wasn't easy, and it's not necessarily that everyone thinks they're the good guys in that area. Like it depicts some of the neighboring countries are like feel like Wakanda stole stuff from them or whatever. Like there's this conflict over their advanced development that is much more internal in the movie. I haven't seen the second one yet, but like it's like in the movie it's like, oh, we should hide ourselves from the world because we're so advanced that if we showed up to the world, like it's all going to go horribly wrong. But in this it's like our neighboring countries don't like us because they feel like we took stuff from them in order to become more advanced, and like there's conflict because of it as well as this other conflict happening. Like that adds some sense of realism to like the fact that they are a country that exists, and like people will notice if a big old countryside chunk of land is just sort of uninhabited by people. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in the MCU, Wakanda did feel more like just a city, and in the comics, it felt more like a country. I think it also felt a lot more real in the comics. Like we get, I feel, an idealized version of Wakanda in the
Mm-hmm.
MCU. And in the comics, it's like, no, like there's factions, there's people disagreeing with other people. Like not everybody actually thinks T'Challa and the Black Panther are doing a good job. And yeah, I think it was interesting seeing that just because it is the most technologically advanced place doesn't mean they're the most advanced in other areas, I guess, or
Mm-hmm.
that that technology has solved all of their problems. Yeah. Oh, and like a lot of like the gritty underbelly of Wakanda in this
Mm-hmm.
series as well. Like corrupt leaders doing bad stuff to people. Just
Misuse
cr-
of power.
criminals and shady stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What are your thoughts on the art?
I loved it. It was so fun to just sit and look at the pretty pictures. I love good comic book art. It's so underappreciated because it's such a unique style, and especially in this one. Like, it's comic book art is streamlined for efficiency and speed, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that you can't, like, make it look pretty and good and, like, fantastic and add little details here and there. And I feel like they did a really good job with this. So,
Mm-hmm. This does something that I really like in comics, where it jumps from like very bright colors to the very muted, like from how they're trying to depict day versus night, or like the overall themes. And so, I really like that we get to see that jump, and I like especially how they represent the technology of the Black Panther suit. Like, let's see if I can get this onto my camera, but like it's represented as like almost technological glyphs.
yeah,
Um,
like a circuit board.
yeah, circuit board. Like there's like symbols in it, like all that kind of stuff. Like it's almost like this digital language, and I think that that's really cool. Um, yeah, and I really like the way that we get to see the characters suit up through that, and how that is represented throughout the book.
This was my favorite page
I like that one too.
because it's this whole scene in just like blues and greens,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really nicely done.
Yeah, I'm struggling with how to describe it because I am not that kind of an artist, but it was very beautiful. It was very bold, and I don't know, I kind of liked, like in some comics, probably more the older ones and stuff, but in some comics, it's like they have drawn a picture and then they have colored it in, whereas this was
Mm-hmm.
more just a lot of like blocks of color, and I liked it. It looked
Mm-hmm.
cool, almost like a geometric feel to it,
Mm-hmm.
kind of.
Definitely.
Well, they definitely like shaded here. Um, whereas like older comics using the one in the back as a reference, like if they want something to appear darker, they just use straight up black. Whereas in the actual comics, like the like shaded areas are actually like a darker version of whatever the color that area is, which is the proper way to shade. Um, if you want to ask an artist, I can tell you that. Um, so it like that adds something to it that's really nice.
All right. So not only have they come a long way in lighting and shading in comics, what did you think of the Black Panther's first appearance?
Oh, it's something.
Yes, just some random uh uh royal person from this country I've never heard of before just decided to give us a spaceship.
Yeah, I would like to
Sure, we'll
remind you that Reed
take it.
Richards is supposed to be one of the smartest people in the MCU.
We'll
Just
take
as a
that.
fun fact.
And then of course accept the invitation to go to his house and meet up with him. That's not suspicious at all.
Trojan horse.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
yeah. Um, so this like by no means is as bad as we read as when we read Shang-Chi,
Yeah.
but there's definitely like things in here that are like, oh man, like you could have just been like, yes, this character is good at tracking things. Yep, that was all you needed to do, but you just
Now we're gonna take a
chose
brief
to do the
intermission
other
to
thing.
talk about this other group all the way over here that has nothing to do with this storyline.
I love the random Inhumans thing. Just like,
Oh yeah, by the way, this group over here is stuck in a bubble. Okay. It was a very hilarious comic. And I mean that in the sense of like it was bad funny. Not good funny, bad funny.
Sheen, what do you think?
I mean, the character of Black Panther has certainly come a long
Yes,
way.
that is a very political way to say that.
Yes.
Um, I mean, I think we get to see a very stark contrast between how he was first written and how a black author writes him as um,
Mm-hmm.
worlds of difference.
Yes.
Worlds.
Um,
Worlds.
and also like the 60s compared to the present.
Yeah.
Like, we have learned things.
Yes.
Yes, we have.
Thankfully.
Yes.
We have come
Yeah.
a long way.
I think it was a bit of a rough first appearance, but
So that issue was from the 60s. I was trying to find a
Yeah.
published date for
1961.
60s.
it. Yeah.
I believe that specific one
tracks.
came out 66. The
1961. The back of my book says 1961.
because the Fantastic Four series started in 61, but issue 52 came out in
Oh.
66.
Okay, so it's like the 1961 run of Fantastic Four, of which this is episode, or that is book. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I see you confusing back of the book, tricking me, making me
I
look
know,
silly
well,
on my own podcast.
I was confused looking
Oh,
for it on
no.
Marvel Unlimited, and I'm like, is it this one? It says 66, but this says it's supposed to be the one from 61. I'm like, no, it's got to be this one. It has Black Panther's first appearance on the cover.
Now, by the mere press of a button, I'll contact my chieftain halfway around the planet. Sorry, that still cracks me up. Yes, a little metal box that allows you to communicate halfway around the world.
All right. Are there any themes that stood out to you?
Emotional damage. Emotional trauma. Um, and ways to help each other get through it. That violence is not the answer to that. Violence is not the answer, especially when you are hurting.
Yeah, as I said at the top, I really like this idea, like philosophically, of the role of government versus the role of the people. There's a really good conversation. I was trying to like pick out a specific quote from it, and I'd have like the conclusion of it for our next question. But I really like this idea of like it's both the government's job to protect its people, and then like it's also, but like that's not all that there is that's supposed to happen. Like there's this other side of it, and so I really like this idea. And again, of kind of that philosophy when it's all represented through this king who has been absent and is now back, and there's all this strife. And as like Black Panther and like T'Challa deals with that conflict of I feel like I haven't been here, so I need to take all of this into my hands, but that's not really the right answer. I really think that that is an interesting theme.
Yeah. I think something that stood out to me was like they talked a lot about like blood and heritage and like your people and things like that. And I think responsibility versus love,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is a big struggle that he gets called out on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just like, yeah, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, but you're not feeling it at all. Like, people know when you're doing it out of obligation and you're resenting it. Um, yeah, and just seeing how different people's emotions played into how they fought for the people of Wakanda. Because really, all of the characters we're seeing are trying to help Wakanda and fix it, and just how that plays out differently. Right? Anything else that stood out to you?
So I got one. I got two quotes, I guess. One's towards the end of the conversation that I was referencing earlier. So it's T'Challa's mom talking, and she says, so they're talking about basically how to, like, basically how he as king should show the country that he cares, and that it's again the idea that it's not just about protection. And so T'Challa asks, how does he do it? And so the mom says, by giving those who love you something more than um, recitation and ceremony, by giving that which all great kings ultimately offer, inspiration. And I really liked that idea that like yes, like I mean obviously even from like a meta point, like the idea that our leaders in all realms, the thing that they do best is inspire us to be better. Like that's kind of the hope of a good leader it's not just the orders that they give, it's the way that they inspire us. And like obviously we can tie that in with our faith too. Like it's not just the fact that Jesus, gave his life for ours, but it's also the fact that he has inspired us to go and to show that love, to show that life to other people, and like the inspiration that we are the inspiration that we are shown, or based on what we have been shown. There we go. And I think that it was a very cool way of challenging T'Challa, who has struggled with that pain or that weight of being king versus the being king is fun, which is kind of what we get more in the MCU. Um,
The Simba treatment,
yes.
as I call it. The misguided thoughts or perceptions. Not necessarily misguided, but one of the ones that I found interesting was sort of middle-ish end with, what is his name? T2. He says, "It is not fear of my death that brings us together, Ezekiel. It is fear of losing fear." Or fear of losing. Never mind. I missed the period. I thought it said it is fear of losing fear. And I was like, that's an interesting, like, concept. Like, because fear, like, is part of what makes us human. But he's afraid of just losing, period. And I'm like, okay, that's seems a little bit different. But either way, he says it is fear of losing, fear of tyranny extending itself unchallenged even one more day. Which I guess is also interesting in the concept of, like, that goes back to earlier, where him perceiving the other side as tyranny, and then the other side, like, trying their best to do good for their people. Like, yeah.
Um, I think one thing that stood out to me was the scene between Shuri and her question mark mom in the plane of
Uh-huh.
memories, and how she talks about how she'll give Shuri power, and it's not the power that you would expect, but she says, "The power of memory, daughter, the power of our song." And I love how that encapsulates so much, I think, because, like, it's not, I don't know, I think their song is more of a song that tells a story. So it speaks of their heritage and the people who have come before, the queens who have come before, and but it's also the fact that after they've all been through so much, like they're still singing together and joining together. And I don't know, that is a powerful thing. I think so many things wrapping up in that one idea. I mean, as a lover of stories, I think they're pretty powerful. So when that's brought into people's lives as well, pretty cool.
another quote I really liked. It's when T2 is talking with the philosopher Changameyer. And so T2 says, "And can you answer your own questions, Changameyer? Because I can." And then Changameyer says, "The questions are the point, and your answers, what you think is an answer, is simply another question." Um, and then T2 responds, "Perhaps, but staying here, shut up in thought and abstraction, that is unconscionable. Um, how long will they plunder our people while we stand aside and look?" And so I really like every like individual part of that conversation. I love this idea of like, hey, philosopher, like, can you like you present all of this thought? Can you actually answer? Like, do you actually know what you believe, or are you just like asking questions to ask questions? And then I like the retort of asking questions is the point. That's how we get somewhere, is by answering a question. And then that leads us to another thing. Then that leads us to another thing. And this idea that we're not trying to reach like this finite point in our understanding. It's always trying to just get us to what is the next thing that we need to solve. What's the next thing that we need to figure out? Then I like, again, like T2's final response there is like, maybe, but you're not like, but all you do is think. Like you're not action. There's no action here. And I really like that as kind of this like catalyst for our first time getting to see T2's philosophy, like where he's coming from. Because I do fully think he agrees, but it's just like, but people are dying. Like all the philosophy doesn't get you anywhere when like people are dying because people are causing harm. And so yeah, I really like that conversation as a whole, but especially that one panel.
You beat me to it.
For once, I stole Shanine's quote.
I really liked that part. All right. Final thoughts on Black Panther: A Nation Under Our Feet, Book 1.
Would like to read more. 10 out of 10. Very enjoyable.
Definitely recommend. I like part of what I think I said this last month when I introduced this book, but part of what I like about this is that they picked someone who is like is an established writer but has never done comics and writes heavy stuff. And then it's like, cool, take those ideas, put them in a comic book. And I really like how that plays out. Again, as I said throughout this, I love the philosophy of this. I love that it's not just how do we solve our problems, punch them. And so I like that we get to see that play out. And yeah, definitely recommend.
Yeah. Also, highly recommend to anyone interested in more Black Panther, anyone who likes reading comics, anyone who likes good stories. It's just a good one. Yeah, I'll probably keep reading this run as well. Very interesting. All right. Our next book club book is yet to be determined. We will announce that either on Monday.
Yeah, hopefully
or
next week. Well,
As soon as possible.
It will be announced on a show this month.
Yeah.
And also in our Discord.
Black Panther: A Nation Under Our Feet, Book 2.
But that will be taking place on December 22nd. So, yes. Thank you for joining us for our book club of Black Panther: A Nation Under Our Feet, Book 1 by Ta-Nehisi Coates. We are One Geek 411 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join our Discord server, check out our Redbubble store, or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Watch live on our Twitch and find all our videos over on YouTube. Rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find me on Instagram at Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES, or Twitter at The Hoot and Howl.
You can find me at I am not prepared with an I.
You can find me as Huma Whittle.
For joining us. Go read a book.